Right on cue. Dogs barking. Just like we were talking about. All right, guys. This is Cody with F is for Fanatic. We have a couple special guests here. Jason. He is kind of becoming a part of this thing.
A regular.
A regular,
bro.
And then we got Coach here. And go ahead, Coach. Introduce yourself. Where you been? Where you coached at, and all that.
Well, I don't have to tell everywhere I've been, right?
No, not everywhere.
Well, I'm Coach Royball, Coach Philip Royball, and by the way, I got a little funny story about that real quick. But I got my doctorate degree several years ago, and all my players were starting to ask me, well, do we call you Dr. Royball or Dr. Coach, or and so I thought that was funny that my kids were wanting to know, what the hell are we going to call you now? And to me, guys, coach is the best term of endearment, and I love that title. Everybody still calls me that, but I was in coaching for 35 years. I was in it for a long time, and enjoyed every second of it. And y'all know, coaching is not an easy deal. I started off in a little town by the name of Memphis, Texas, coaching the Memphis Cyclones. That was my first job out of college, and then obviously moved around. You know how when coaches are trying to get a job, you move around and trying to move up the system, and ended up coaching I went from Memphis, Texas to Olton, from Olton, Texas over to Paducah, Texas, where I was fortunate enough to, we had some really good athletes there. We had Will Flemings, that he ended up playing basketball at Texas Tech and is in their Hall of Honor.
I remember that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, great young man. He's obviously coaching now, but we had some real good success there. We got beat there in a quarterfinal game that if we win that one, I think we win the state championship. And then from there, I moved on to Midwestern State University, where I coached secondary, and I was the recruiting coordinator and coached special teams as well there. And then left there and took my head coaching job at Dallas Skyline. Big school. They were the 5th largest school in the state of Texas at the time, and they had gone through some real issues there. And but finally left Skyline. We had some good success. Had players that we put all across the country in colleges, and you can just name about every D1 school there is. We had a kid playing there, and not just at the colleges. Most of our kids ended up playing there. And I'll never forget my first year there. We took the program over, and they'd had 6 coaches in 2 years. Six head coaches in 2 years, guys.
Wow. What was kind of the problem there?
Well, it was a little bit of everything. They had one coach that came in, stayed for a day. It's also interesting that we're talking culture, because the culture there was just so bad. They had some coaches that came in, and they had one that was taking money from the program. And I mean, it was just, the program was a mess.
Okay.
And then you talk about Dallas Independent School District, guys, if you want to get into a whole different conversation.
There's some culture.
Yes. DISD was crazy.
So you're talking kind of a inner city school. Yes. Okay. I just wanted to get that out there so people can.
So if you remember Carter, if you remember Dallas Carter from all those like the ESPN 30 for 30 they talked about, he was in their district, right, Coach?
Yeah. So you played Dallas Carter.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, the first ball game I played against him, Coach James that won the state championships there, and the big ball game with Permian, and the movie Friday Night Lights. So they kick our ass pretty good in that ball.
So they're a good program over there.
Absolutely. So I walk across the field and shake his hand, and he says, "Welcome to the neighborhood, Coach." What could I say? I took my ass kicking and shook my head. But before I left there, we beat them. I picked them for a homecoming game, which he would rag me about that too. He'd say, "Coach, why you be picking the Carter Cowboys for homecoming? You ain't beat us in 35 years." I said, "Well, Coach, let me tell you, buddy, we you pick somebody you think you're supposed to beat at homecoming, and so we did that." So this goes on all season long because we had them the last game of the season. Well, we beat one of the other schools in the district, Dallas Kimball, in 4 overtimes, and they hadn't beat Kimball in many years. And then we had Dallas Carter for the district championship, and it was homecoming for us, and we ended up wearing them out pretty good. So as I walked across the field, I said, "Freddie, this is a great neighborhood." And he didn't think that was as funny as I did, but I told him I really liked the neighborhood.
That was at Skyline?
Yeah, that was it, Skyline.
And so that's top level football down there, guys. This isn't. We're not talking. Coach ain't coaching at Indiana or Missouri. Okay, like that's we only got. Listen, I'm gonna tell you. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you how it is, guys. We have one school here, Center Grove, and they run the state. Okay. And so it's not really like that down there. A little different breed of ball down there, right, Coach?
Oh, there's no doubt. It's you look at colleges and where they hit the Dallas Metroplex really hard. I mean, it's incredible. But it's all relative because people you say, "Coach, you got some hellacious athletes." Well, hell, so does everybody else we play. I mean, we were playing the Plano East, the John Tylers. My first year there, guys, we play. It was the Longview Lobos in the first round of the playoffs. We meet them in Duncanville, and it was so interesting because they were ranked number 1 in the state and number 2 in the nation. So this is my first year there. And so first round of the playoffs, and we go in and how they do the sports writers do the pick'ems and I don't think anybody out of I think 8 to 10 sports writers that did picks, I don't think anybody picked us closer than 50 points in that ball game. And at halftime we're beaten. And it's not till the fourth quarter that they finally figured out what we were doing to them. And they come back and they score a touchdown against us to go ahead. Actually, they go up by 10. And then on the final kickoff, they kick it off to us after the touchdown. We return it, I think, is 88 yards for a touchdown. Randy Davis, one of our great kick returners and running backs, and he ended up at Baylor, but he returned it. But they just barely beat us. They barely came away with the win, and it was lucky for them.
Number 2 in the country almost got knocked out of the first round. Holy
exactly
shit.
by a school that hadn't been winning diddly. So we had them on the ropes, and we had a lot of ball games like that. And like I said, beating Carter for the first time in 35 years.
Did you play Permian?
Good grief.
You know what? We didn't play Permian. I did try to schedule that. We ended up, the AD there ended up giving us, we played Odessa. What was the other school there?
Odessa High School.
Oh, yeah, the Broncos. Odessa High Broncos. We played them there in Odessa, and that was another one of those things. They thought they were going to wear us out pretty good, and we ended up beating them and lost our fullback that ball game that really hurt us that year. I tell you what, another team we played, the Garland Owls, which they're always in there for playing for state championships.
Very good team.
We went to their place to play them. And, people were loving putting us on the schedule because they knew we were not very good. And so we go over to Garland, and we're beating them at halftime, and they're ranked high again in the state. They ended up we fumbled the ball right before half. We're on the 1 yard line, fixing to go up. I think we were going to go up 21, I believe, either 14 or 21. But we're fixing to go up on them, pretty good score, and our fullback, they ripped the ball out from him and return it back about 75, 80 yards. But they had a kicker, guys. I can't remember his name, but he kicked, I think it was 6 or 7 field goals. They never scored a touchdown on us, but they ended up beating us just barely by a field goal because he was, and I'm not talking about kicking 20, 30 yarders. He was kicking 40 and 50 yard field goals.
Which is unheard of at that time.
Absolutely. And I'll never forget that. And they go on that year, guys, and win the state championship. Every year we were there, we had our guys in the playoffs, and we became a very competitive football team. And I don't know if y'all ever heard of Scott Phillips, that was the head coach at Plano East. Scott Phillips, he had some big ball games, but he came over and well, we put him on the schedule, and we got through after the game. They ended up beating us. It was a close ball game, but he came over and he said, "Coach, I can't believe what y'all have done here at Skyline." He said, "We used to we'd beat them 60, 70 points." And he said, y'all are making these kids competitive. And it was, talking about culture. You hire good people, and you expect, your expectations are important because, hell, if they're down here, you got to take those expectations. I don't care if you've been winning or not winning. You've got to have high expectations. And I've always loved going to programs that weren't very good, because that was one of the things. I was a builder, and I wanted to take those programs and build them. And that's like when I came here from Skyline. I came here to Hobbs, and everybody. First of all, leaving the state of Texas to come coach in the state of New Mexico, guys, a lot of people thought I was short a few brain cells.
You might have been, actually.
I think I was.
Because obviously, I would guess, Coach, correct me if I'm wrong, those big schools down there, they'll shell out a little money to get a program back and going, right?
Absolutely. Well, and I tell you how I ended up here in Hobbs is so Irving MacArthur, which is right there where the Cowboys used to have their practice facility. Irving MacArthur, and then what was the name of the other little town? I say little, they were 4A. But both of these places had already talked to me about coming to be the head coach. And so I was just looking for a practice interview. And so somebody said, "Hey, Hobbs, New Mexico, that job's open." I didn't know anything about it. I had driven through here before. And I'll even tell you a funny story about that. We used to drive through here, and I used to tell my wife, "This is the ugliest damn place I've ever seen in my life. I would never,
still true,
never come here." Well, never say never.
Never say never, right?
Exactly. But you know what? We ended up coming here because, well, I called the AD, and the AD, he says, "Well, we have our last interview in just a few minutes." I said, "Oh, not a problem." And so we just kind of keep chatting and talking. Well, we ended up talking for about an hour and a half. And then he says, "Hey, I got to get to that interview." He said, "Could we call you back? My principal and I call you back in a little while after the interview?" I said, "Sure." So he called me back. And so finally, long story short, they said, "Can you be here tomorrow?" I said, "Tomorrow?" And so I did. I stayed up all night long because I always put a notebook together for each person in the interview committee. And so I put my packets together and, drove in the next day and interviewed. And 2 days later, the superintendent calls me. I remember it like it was yesterday. My staff and I were going into a Chinese food place right by Skyline to have lunch, and he calls and the superintendent says, he says, "Hey, congratulations, coach! You're the new head football coach at Hobbs High School." And I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! I appreciate that, but." I said, we hadn't talked money. We hadn't talked. I hadn't brought my family there. I want my family to come see it. This is a family decision in my household. So, but anyway, obviously the rest is history. We went there. They kept us. We stayed. They put us in a hotel for a week, and I went through everything. And everybody told me it's a basketball community. Don't go there. But my hard headed self said, we can get some things done there. And I tell you what, we didn't win the way I wanted to here, but I think Jason.
I got something to add on that. Yeah, go ahead.
We talking about changing a culture.
Yeah.
We changed the culture, and we did some things here, and talking about how those schools in Texas pay. When I came here and took this job, they made me the highest paid coach in the state of New Mexico, which pissed off all those other coaches that were state champions and many state champions. And so it was interesting, but it was fun.
I would add on
Go ahead,
that.
Jason.
And that was my first sports editor. Well, I wasn't my first one, but it was my first real sports editor position at a real newspaper. So I became sports editor there his first year. And it was tough there. I mean, and the thing is I come from a place in New Mexico that we won a lot of state championships. I mean, we've got 30 of them. So and we were not the top class, the next class down from them. Right. So when we played Hobbs, it was an easy win, always. Now, when Coach got there, and it was they actually had a little bit of success in the years before that, but had kind of fallen a little flat a little bit. And the one thing I'll tell you is that the problem with that program is in the way that he wanted to do things was because there was a strength problem there, like what we've talked about with Oklahoma quite a bit of times. These kids were set up to run the spread. They weren't that big, even though they had some big kids, but they, more skilled kids than anything else.
Yeah.
It wasn't really conducive for him doing what, and plus he has some other things working against him there. And you could tell it was new for me. It was new for him. So that's where we kind of hit it off, Cody. And I tell you, you could tell right away though, that he was going to do things differently. He was able to do some things at the school. They didn't have turf at the stadium then. And everybody, they had 2 soccer teams playing on it. They had obviously the football team and JVs and all that kind of stuff.
It was tore up by time game day.
All the time.
Pieces all the time. So it was one of those things that he, and it wasn't that the school had, I mean, it's at that time, it was probably the largest school in the state,
Mm-hmm.
but money-wise, I mean, and there was some money there, but he had to go get it from outside of taxes and things like that, and he was able to do it. That's one thing I've always said about coaches.
Fundraising and stuff like that.
He will raise money and make sure that they put what was that? They did an indoor practice facility for him at one point. That was what? How much was that for? I mean,
that was right at $4 million.
Yeah, and you did that in a year.
Yeah, yeah, we did that in a year, and I tell you, even the governor gave me $1 million.
Yeah.
But we just went out, and you got to be creative. I think that again,
the classic was my favorite thing that you did when you brought that thing together and started having. They had a 4-game classic there, and everybody made more money on their opening game. Every team that played in it made more money on their opening game than if they had it at home.
Yeah,
what was the classic? Was it a tournament?
It was basically a football tournament. We did is we actually started with the small schools. We played them on Thursday night, and you could buy a ticket for all the games, and they played Thursday night. Then Friday night we had 2 ball games, and then Saturday we had 2 ball games. So you were getting to watch 5 ball games, and I think we charged $25 a ticket, but
I bet that made a killing.
And I'm telling you, like Jason said, even Artesia that makes a ton of money because they fill their stadium up.
They got an amazing stadium and
Yes,
amazing boosters and everything.
yes.
Yeah.
But they made more money at our place in playing in that thing than they would have made it at home. And people couldn't believe it. But if you think they made money, guys, you know what we did because
Yeah.
I was going to definitely take care of us. But yeah, we put the turf coming in.
That kind
I
of
went,
stuff was so big. It was so big, and now it's all over the state. There's not anywhere in this part of the country in this part of the state that
Yeah.
doesn't have turf on their field.
Yeah.
And at that time, nobody did,
We got
and so they all do.
we graduate about a class of 100, and we got a whole sportsplex now. And
Yeah.
I don't know where they got the money.
Right.
Well,
Guys, we're the
and
biggest.
Thank
We're
God
the
it's cheaper too, and that's what Coach was able to. Hey, this is going to cost less for the district because you don't have no maintenance on it, really.
Yeah.
It's a
and
lot less maintenance.
That's how I sold it, and I sold.
Right.
I had a guy conduct a study for me. Our maintenance guy did a study for me on how much water usage we had, and water's a big deal. So I knew I had to find those key points that we could sell, and then it was just a three-way deal. It was the county gave a third of it, the city gave a third of that money, and then the school system gave a third of that money. So we saved them gobs of money.
Right.
But what's interesting to me, guys, is still it was a battle within the school system to get that done.
the
And I'm
school
thinking,
board.
yeah, guys,
Yeah,
this is a no-brainer. It's a
Those are
no-brainer.
many politicians. Okay, that's all they are. So and listen, my uncle, he works for a big construction company here in Indianapolis. He did the IU renovation. IU just had that big renovation about 3 years ago. Now, he said, "Man, I loved the job, but I hated dealing with the board members, the boosters, and the lawyers.
Yep, absolutely.
It's
And that's
terrible."
exactly what it is. That's exactly. Well, once we got that turf in, then I went after that big indoor facility, and I had matter of fact, where that started was having a couple of beers and sitting down, and I drew it up on a napkin, and that was the origination of that building, and I tell you what, it was the nicest facility in the state of New Mexico. And I'll tell you the funny thing about that included University of New Mexico and New Mexico State. We had a better facility, weight room, indoor turf field.
It was nice, man. It was so nice.
It's
still one of the best ones in the state, I would think.
Yeah, it is. And I tell you, the only thing is, the one thing that they didn't do, I had locker rooms all the way around that thing for every sport. It wasn't just for football. I had it set up where because I'm going to tell you guys, and I know this sounds crazy, but our baseball team used to dress in their cars. Our soccer team used to dress in their cars.
Right.
Now, what the hell kind of deal is that?
Right. Yeah, they had those little sheds out there for the coaches and stuff at the ballpark that was just down the road. It was crazy.
Yeah, just nuts. And so, but that's the piece that they said, well, we'll phase that in later. Well, I already know how phasing in goes.
Yeah.
The phase two, it ain't happening.
Yeah.
So
you got to get as much as you can get off the top.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but we got it built, and it was tremendous. We got a big jumbo scoreboard as well, and now they got a bigger one, which is incredible. But again, I wanted our kids to see that they had won a state championship way back in the day, and I was trying to bring some of that influence back from that staff and some of those ex-players, and because again, the culture was, I put up also a big signboard with all the successes they'd had there previously, with all their district championships,
the
their
history,
runners-up, playoffs.
Was light, really, comparatively to. I mean, they had in their basketball program was fabulous. They had won 4 in a row before he got there.
Yeah,
but the thing is that, but one does well and the other suffers. But Coach changed the culture there in a way that most people don't realize is that, and I think, it depends on who you talk to over there. He's got his people that love him, and I'm sure there's people that say plenty on the other side of it, because the first couple of years were really hard, because part of it is that he didn't have the strength to run. He was a power run game, and play defense and stuff like that. And the truth is that the ones that did that around there, they were just in another position for that. And I mean, I felt like they had you set up bad anyways. You had to play Andrews right off the bat, that first year, and then Artesia. And it just, I mean, it's tough when the kids aren't really used to winning.
Yeah.
And they're learning something new. It was tough. But by the time I left there, because I left there after 3 years, and they were starting to come around. Yeah. And there was still some issues. But the thing is that, like, now, now you've got a decent program. They got pretty deep in the playoffs this year, but it took, there wasn't an attractive job to anyone in the state of New Mexico.
But now it is.
Before Coach Roybach got there.
So
there's a lot of ways of winning over there that other than just winning on the field, because in order for them to get where they are now, they still haven't won a state championship, since 70 something or whatever it was.
Right.
But they have an opportunity to now, because and it took the things that Coach was able to do while he was there, the changes that he was able to implement, and now everybody else is doing it. Like I said, there were a lot of pissed off people at him that he was making all that money, but he earned that money too. And besides, I mean, it was tough watching for the first year, and then they got a little better the next year, and then the next year I was like, okay, here we go.
It's when you're building a program, and people don't realize, Coach, how hard is it to win? I don't care where you're at. How hard is it for everything to come together and win a state championship at any level?
Guys, state championships don't come around very often. I mean, there's people that coach.
Texas is a different animal than everywhere else too.
Coach forever and never even sniff at state championship.
And be a good coach.
And be a hell of a coach.
And have great teams.
Yeah. There's no doubt. I mean, it's tough to win. Everything's got to fall together. And, that's just like I was talking about earlier, Skyline. We play Longview and almost beat them. They're ranked number 2 in the nation. And we were nobodies and almost beat them. So that tells you there's a fine line in there.
Think about that team. You guys probably would have won state in a lot of states. That team there. First time you ever played them.
I could have brought my JV football team from Skyline over here and won a state championship.
I don't doubt that.
Yeah. No, seriously. I'd have kicked everybody's ass. I mean, it wouldn't have even been close games.
Did you, Coach? Did you ever have a team? And we'll again with culture. Did you ever have a team that had all the talent in the world, but just didn't glue in together, or just you had some bad apples, and you know what I mean? Let's talk about that a little bit, because people don't understand, especially some of these at the college level. They get Texas A&M. They get all these 5 stars, but they ain't winning like Alabama and Georgia are. No. Okay, so let's get into that, Coach.
Well, and again, culture is when you start talking culture of a program, I mean, it goes far deeper than the coaches and the players. I mean, it's Hobbs is an example. It's a community culture. It's an entire community, and you can change the things within the programs, but then there's those outside factors that creep in. Guys, we had here at Hobbs High, we had parents telling kids, "Oh, y'all are going over to Clovis tonight. Y'all are going to get your ass kicked." That was parents and grandparents. And so, it takes 20 positive statements to get rid of one negative statement. We couldn't feed enough positive into them to get rid of that mindset. And then again, talking about players, you have players, especially when you come in, and a lot of guys, a lot of coaches, y'all know this already. a lot of coaches, especially at the college level, but even at high school, hey, basically the seniors are fired. We're not even going to deal with those guys because they already got bad habits, and you lose some good kids in the process. But again, you got to change the mentality, and you got to start young, and that was another thing we did here as well. Is when I came here, first of all, I walked into the varsity locker room to talk to my varsity football team. I had 23 guys in the locker room at a largest school in the state. That's pathetic. Uh, and then they had they we had three middle schools. Okay, they had a seventh grade team at each one of those. They had an eighth grade team. That's six, and then we had a JV. That was seven, and then we had our varsity. That was eight. When I left this program here, we had we had two seventh grade teams at each school. That's six. We had two eighth grade teams. That's 12. Our freshman team, we had two freshman teams, and we had two JV teams, and obviously the varsity. So you can tell because football is a numbers game. I don't
Mhm.
care what people say.
Yeah.
You got to have numbers, and that was another thing. But again, it's changing that culture and that mindset. They didn't even lift weights down at the junior highs, and that was another thing. We changed that piece of we built weight rooms at each one of the
It
junior
was a
highs.
complete rebuild. A
It
complete, I
complete
mean, not even a rebuild. It was a build.
guys. I hired two guys that had been very successful in Texas high school as head coaches. One of them was Army Salinas. That he had been the head coach at Seminole, right down 30 miles down the road from us, as a head coach for many years. I hired him at one of the middle schools. I hired, golly, I'm gonna forget his darn name. But he's the one that I was talking about earlier that had coached Zach Thomas at White Deer, won
Mhm.
state championships there. Wendy Williams,
Wendy
Coach
Williams.
Williams, hired him at another junior high. So that was another thing. I took head coaches out of the state of Texas and brought them to, they had been very successful at the high school level, and they were now coaching our junior high programs. Uh, and again, it changed that whole mindset. You know, getting the right coaches is another piece. I think, Cody, that you spoke of just a second ago. You got to get the right coaches.
Mhm.
And, people used to ask me, guys, because I would always hire all these previous head coaches into my program. And they'd say, Coach, aren't you scared that, you know, they're going to take over your job?
Like a mutiny.
Exactly. And I said, you know what, guys, here's the thing. If they take over my job, then hell, I deserve to be gone.
Right.
Because if I can't control my coaching staff and keep us all on the same page, then I don't
Which
deserve to be here.
which is a can be sometimes, right, coach? It can be difficult at times.
Mhm.
You're blending a lot of alphas. All these
Yeah,
guys are all alphas,
That's
all
a good
right?
way to
yeah,
put it, Cody. That's a
And
really
you
smart way
are
to put it.
essentially trying to get them all under one guy, and uh, it,
Well, and just pulling in the same
especially
direction, I think, more than anything,
yeah, especially guys that have like Coach said has won state titles, and all it takes is for one guy to wake up one day and say, "Oh hell, I've won so many state titles here and there, and we're
yeah,
gonna why are we even doing it this way? This is stupid." And then it takes
yeah.
all you got to nip it in the bud quick, right?
You do. You do. And
And
that was another thing. There was some really good coaches when I came here. I mean,
Mhm.
that we had on staff, but also I will tell you this, and I'm dear friends with most of them today. But
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you this: they didn't have buy-in to what we were wanting to do either.
It took
And
a
I
long
knew
time.
that. I
That was
mean, it's
hard.
not it's not like I didn't know. But you got to be smart enough that I had to see what they knew the kids well. The kids loved them. They had good relationships. So I had to kind of balance that in those coaches.
Okay.
And we'd have those hard conversations, guys. You know what? I know you don't like what we're doing here, but at the end of the day, the kids love you guys. And if you really want the kids to be successful, then you need to buy in. And if you're not buying in, at least act like it with the kids.
How do
Uh,
you feel? How do you feel after you? Actually, I got before I ask this. Sorry,
okay.
I got
No, you're
ADD.
good.
People don't realize when we're talking. You're talking all the way down to junior varsity, even down to Pop Warner. Okay,
Uh-huh.
the head football coach of the high school has to be into the Pop Warner leagues because
We
that's
did
your
that.
fundamentals.
Yeah.
And that's one thing here over here at the school that my kid is at now. Now we left a power program. We left Center Grove, and you can look them up. They're like 18th in the nation. Okay,
Yes. I know who
they
you're talking about.
Center Grove in Indiana is a pipeline to Ohio State. They've
Yep.
won a bunch of state titles.
Yep.
They just won one back to back last 2 years, and we moved out here to a basketball school. Cascade's known for basketball.
The rest of Indiana, isn't it?
Huh?
That's the rest of Indiana, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's big. I mean football's still big here, but not like basketball, obviously. But
Right.
what I like about it, and I was kind of and it was his first year at Pop Warner, is that the high school coach was, the program. This is the biggest thing. When they realized, look, we have to be in. We're talking rookies. We're talking the lowest league you have in football, and we have coaches from the high school helping out, and that's the biggest thing. Listen,
Yep.
this is the way we want you to do it here, and that's it. There's no we're going to do it this way or that way. We even have the same playbook as them, offense and defense. We run their offense and their defense, and people don't realize how big that is. And when you're
No.
not doing that, you're crippling yourself, right, Coach?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that because that was another thing that we did is and that's like when I came here, they wanted me teaching a full schedule of classes. And I said, hell no, I ain't teaching no classes. And I taught one strength training class, and that was it. But even my assistants, my coordinators and those guys, they wanted them in a full schedule. I said, no, 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 no. What they're going to do is they're going to go down to the freshman school on these days. They're going to go down to the middle schools on these days, and they're going to help those coaches coach our kids to get better. So we had a rotation. Also, the Pop Warner, that was basically run at our Boys and Girls Club. Well, I went and talked to them and said, look, I need all of your coaches. I'll have a staff meeting for them, and we'll sit down and we'll draw everything up. So we put together a playbook for those guys. And I told them, guys, I know y'all want to run your own stuff that you have, and but here's what I want you to run. I want you to run these 4 offensive plays and these 4 defensive schemes. This is what I want you running. And then the rest of it, you run whatever you want to, but these need to be part of the program because our kids need to see it starting then
Right.
all the way to when they're seniors. And
Yep.
and we did get that going.
And
That's
the time
Yeah,
they
go
get to high school, they dang near got the minus the wrinkles and the motions. They got the whole playbook.
Exactly.
Well, I can tell you that in our teacher, that it was the first, really the first program in the state that ran the spread, and same coach was there for probably over 20 years, and then now he's had his nephew ended up taking it over, and then another. They only hire from within at this school.
They're inbred over there.
I wouldn't even really argue with that. But the thing is that like I can watch a game on Friday nights and I know exactly what the play call is before they run it. You can see it with their, by just down and distance, and then the formation. Now it's a spread formation, but they'll move guys around.
Yeah,
you can tell with motion. There's a lot of things you'll see, and then and even by coverages and stuff like that. But that's because we started running that crap and like he got there when I was in 8th grade. So, but we started running that stuff when at that time, and now they're running it from 6th grade on.
Yeah.
And so these kids know it. I mean, literally know the play, every play of the in
I
the
don't think
system.
about
So
it. It's just natural.
All the terminology is the same.
Yes,
my quarterback in high school, we could look at each other on it. I mean, I could give him a look, and we were both looking at the same thing at the DB, and we knew exactly what the route is going to change now. And there's no signaling. He didn't have to say nothing to me. I didn't have to say nothing to him. We just ran the route, because we watched that much film and we did that. I mean, and we knew the playbook, and it's just, I mean, you just, and it becomes fun to kind of dissect everybody and do kind of your thing with it. That was a lot of fun for us. Coach got into the spread. Well, it was just after the second year.
Second year, after the second year. Yeah.
Yeah. Because
we had to.
Changed to the spread at Hobbs.
Yeah.
He had to. It was the kind of, go ahead.
No, it was, what we were running at Skyline was the triple I. Our linemen, all of our linemen were 280 and above. Our fullback that I was telling you that we lost, that blew his knee out in Odessa, he was 310. And we would just beat you to death. And then I had tailbacks that could run a hole in the wind. So we would just beat you to death, and then we'd run right by you. But we had to make that move. I didn't want to, but I knew we had to make it because we didn't have those kinds of linemen, and we just couldn't do it. We had skill kids, and we had to go to the spread. Now we still ran the ball out of the spread.
Yeah, you did. And that was the thing, is when he came to me talking about, I couldn't believe he was considering it, but it was during the second year, and he was like, I just don't. I mean, we're not.
Well, and I'll tell you, Jason was an influence in me making that decision too, because he would say, Coach, you don't have the same kind of kids that you had at Skyline, and you got more skilled kids, and he influenced me in that direction.
How hard is that for a coach to do when he's been doing it one way?
He did it, man. I couldn't believe he did it.
It's hard. It's definitely hard. I mean, you've been doing something, and it's been good to you, and you've been successful with it. Right. Basically, I've been a running guy since I was in high school. I played at Perryton, Texas, and we were always in the quarters and the semis, and well, just to tell you, from the time I started playing football in the seventh grade till the time I graduated, we lost 3 ball games. They were all in the playoffs, deep in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so I had carried a lot of that over into my personal coaching, and that's what I knew. I knew it inside out.
That's how it was here. I mean, we didn't lose games. We didn't believe in losing games here. You're not supposed to lose games here ever. You know.
And so, but I will tell you a funny story, Cody. So we've been playing Artesia, I guess, for about 4 or 5 years. And
hilarious story, by the way.
we go play them at their place. Well, it took me a while, but somebody told me, I said, the visitors ramp that you go down in Artesia down to the playing field, they call it the losers ramp. I said, what? They said, yeah, they call it the losers ramp. I said, well, hell, we ain't going down that damn thing.
And he calls me about it too. And he's like, is that what they call it? And I was like, no.
I did.
I didn't want to even tell him because really I knew what he was going to do. They call it that, Jason? They call it that? And I was like, nah, I don't know what you're talking about. Bullshit. He was on it. And I was like, no, that's not what because I knew what he was going to do. And it would lose. And people in our teacher would, and they did lose their freaking mind over it.
You went down the other ramp.
Oh, yeah.
Went down the winner's ramp.
Yeah.
And they were not happy.
Oh, no.
Well, and another thing Cooper would do, he wouldn't take the field with his team until the visitors took the field.
Well, yeah, that pissed him off more than you going down the ramp.
Exactly. So he's up there waiting for us to come out, and we're not coming out. The officials keep coming to us saying, hey, y'all got to come on down. I said, well, when he comes down, I'll come down. Well, they'd go talk to Cooper, and this kind of went on for probably about 10 minutes. They going back and forth, and I told him, I said, when he goes down, I'll go down. The only part I didn't tell him is once he goes down, then we're coming right behind him down the winner's ramp, and boy, the crowd went crazy.
So let me tell you what they did after this. The next time Hobbs was in town, there was a fence there that had a lock on it that only they were going to open.
They locked you out.
They had to lock it off. They locked it off. It's still locked off to this day. That it only goes open whenever the dogs are coming out to go down. That's it.
So, are you saying, Coach, that there might be some coaches that can't stand you?
Oh yeah,
out there.
Oh yeah, he liked to poke. He liked to poke at him.
You like to poke a little bit.
He told me the first year, he goes, "The Bulldogs are the underdogs," and I was like, "I'm not printing that." Goes, yeah, print it. That's what I said. And I was like, "No, I'm not saying that."
I'm not.
I was like, "I'm not doing it."
Well, you know what? And I'll tell you what, I never meant any.
It was fun though. We had a lot of fun with it, and I don't even think Cooper disliked you. He really didn't.
No.
He got irritated with you a few times, but he wasn't mad.
Cooper still, even after I got out of coaching, we stayed in touch, and he told me, Cooper told me, and I always felt good about this because this was coming from a guy that had won multiple
15, 16 state championships.
And he always told me, he said, what you've done in Hobbs, I'm not sure. And he told me this. He said, I don't think anybody else could have done that. He said,
how many Artesia coaches were there at that point, or would have went there at that point? Now the entire staff is full of Artesia coaches.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have went there before he went there.
No.
Oh, they went to Hobbs?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Their staff right now has several Artesia coaches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, that was and I tell you what, that happened. I didn't even know about the gate being there in between and locked, because I'll tell you what I would have done. I still wouldn't have gone down the loser's ramp.
No, you wouldn't have.
I would have walked our team all the way around the stadium and gone down the ramp. So they would have.
I was so pissed off at whoever the hell it was that told you that crap. I could not believe they said that, because I wouldn't have said it.
No, you guys aren't going to say that stuff.
Well, it's not. Look, it's not really. It wasn't something for everybody else to know. Is the thing about it. It's an inside thing. You would have done the same kind of stuff with your teams.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It was the visitors ramp.
Yeah.
The winners ramp. They started calling it that because they used to have the state championships painted on it on the way down, right?
Yeah.
So that was the winners ramp, and it gets its own little. It gets a life of its own. But it wasn't something that we would say that to others ever. I don't even know why anybody said that to you. I can't believe that they would have.
Stir the pot. Come on, Jason.
Yeah, well, of course, but and to be fair, Coach stirred the pot enough that of course that's why they did it.
Yeah.
That being said, they had to know he was going to do that. If you knew him at all, you knew that he was going to do that. It was like, go ahead. Yeah. Dare him. That's a great idea.
So, Coach, I want to ask you this now that we've gotten to know you a little bit better. If you were only given one, Skyline or Hobbs, with all your achievements that you've done for the programs, which one do you feel is more lasting?
Ooh.
I'm going to say Hobbs. Because I think and the reason I say that is because, and Jason alluded to it earlier, I think we not only changed the culture here in Hobbs for football, but we changed the culture in the entire state of New Mexico, like Jason was talking about. Now everybody's got turf fields. Other people have indoor facilities. I think we just completely changed the mindset and culture of the entire state. So I would say it's more like, and I'll tell you, the Skyline's kind of gone back to the days of old. I don't think they won a ball game last year. And I'll tell you guys, when I left, when I retired here in Hobbs, when I applied that year at the end, I think they had 5 or 6 people that applied for the job. When I left, they had 72 applicants
for Hobbs.
Wow. And that'll kind of tell you how it was.
It wouldn't have ever. It just wasn't that way. I was surprised when they got him, because
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't believe, and I say, where did he come from? And they said Skyline, and I started looking it up and stuff. And I mean, I had to go meet this guy. I was like, what the hell brought you here? And he said the same. Asked me the same thing. Why the hell are you here? And I was like, same.
Same.
Is that, and I'd been at a little tiny paper, and this paper wasn't a whole lot bigger, but it was done correctly. And it was, we both had a program to build, we really did. And, we did. And we kind of did. We kind of did, and I enjoyed my friendship with him. It's lasted 20 years now. I mean, this is 20 years ago that this all happened.
Do you still go to games, Coach?
What's that?
Huh? Do you still go to games?
No. I not the Hobbs games. I have I went back for about 3 ball games after that first year after I retired, and it was really hard for me. I struggled with it. I tell you, and I never wanted anybody to say, Cody, here comes Roy Ball. Hell, he's going to be talking about this and that, and the program's not doing this or doing that. So I didn't want to give anybody that opportunity to be able to say that. I think I've been gone long enough now at this point that I'm probably going to start taking my grandson, because he's getting into sports, and he played. Matter of fact, I coached my grandson this year in flag football.
Boy, isn't that fun!
And hey, I had more fun than any ball game I ever coached. It was a blast. we actually got beat in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, my son's team got beat in the Super Bowl too this year.
Yeah, but it was a blast. I mean, it was good. And as y'all well know, it wasn't so much about whether I was a good coach or a bad coach or the other coach. It was about the players on the team and who had the best athletes. Because the first time we played them, guys, we beat them in, I think it was 15 overtimes during the regular season. It took 15 overtimes, and then they beat us by a touchdown in the championship.
Boy, you can pick them out too. You see a kid here or there, and you're just like, oh boy.
Well,
you know what I mean?
This one looked like he might have already had a scholarship to maybe TCU or something.
Yeah. Boy, they're getting faster and better too.
Oh, bigger, faster, and stronger.
Athletes are changing, aren't they?
Yeah.
Even like you got defensive. It's the crazy thing is, like, you think about it now. We've been talking about it on our show a lot. It was where was Oklahoma going to have to change things? It was on the defensive side, but not just on the defensive side, on the defensive line. That you have to have monsters, and not just big fat guys. You got to have big dudes that are fast as shit. And I mean, it's just it's a different game. One of his coaches that he went to Texas. And you had him. He was you didn't coach him in high school. He was Coach Young.
No, he actually was down at a school of, I think they were a 4A school, Waxahachie, Texas. And the way I met Antoine Kirk Hughes is I had one of my kids at Skyline, Montrell Flowers, that was a high school All-American. And he Antoine was a high school All-American, and they came to our place to do a photo shoot. And that's where I got to meet Antoine. And then he went on to the NFL for a little bit, and then I ended up hiring him here. And that was another thing, guys. I was able to bring in some real quality, hell, Hobbs America had never thought about bringing a college football player in here, and even a guy that had played in the NFL a little bit to come in here to coach. And again, the culture and the perception of changing those kids' attitudes, because I'm telling you, they were like, you played at University of Texas? And I mean, not just played, he was a starter.
Yeah.
Played in the defensive end. I mean, he had one of the fastest kids in the state playing running back that year. Yeah. And this guy, wearing sweats and not warm at all, smoked this kid running a 40. Smoked him. The guy was talking smack, and he just, I mean, and we're talking about a guy that, what was he, 6'6", and just, probably walked around at 260.
Yeah, he was about 6'6", 275, 270.
He was a monster, and this running back,
And
he
he
was
was
running
small
back
then.
yeah, yeah. But he was, I mean, this kid, and then you had the guy that was the lineman at Oklahoma was
Yeah.
damn it,
I
always forget his name. And he started his last year there too when they won the national championship, as a matter of fact. But it's anyway, he was there too, and I mean, it took stuff like that for it to build even to. I mean, they're still not all the way there yet. So I mean, they've got good coaches, they've got some things going, but I mean, there's some tough 6A programs now in New Mexico. And there's some tough 5A programs. I mean, really, this is a 4-class state. It shouldn't have 6 classes. It's stupidest shit ever. But
the South used to dominate football,
right,
and it's not so much that way anymore because they picked up, like I said, they picked up on a lot of things that we brought in and changed. And they didn't have athletic periods. They didn't have weight rooms. And once we came in and brought that stuff in here, they started picking up on those things. They started hiring athletic directors that truly it was important to be successful in athletics. And so again, I think that was all part of the culture that we brought into the state of New Mexico. And
I ask you this, Coach.
What's up, Hank?
I couldn't imagine trying to coach now with these kids going to IMG and transferring high schools. I mean, they transfer high schools like they transfer college now, right?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, they get away with that crap too.
And then you get, when I first started this channel, Coach Jason Brown was talking about it. I was watching his stuff, the Last Chance U coach. He has a podcast. Oh, he's crazy. He's ate up. But he makes some valid points. And he said, the tackling has gotten so bad in college because these kids they're learning 5 different ways in high school. It's not like what we said, building a program where you're learning the same way to tackle every single time from Pop Warner to your senior. Okay. And these kids in high school are now bouncing around, right?
Oh, they're shoulder tackles. I mean, they're just throwing their body at their shoulder. I mean, with a shoulder, they're coming in. I mean, they're not putting that face mask on the numbers and wrapping up and following through. We and Jason will tell you, we were relentless on tackling. And I'll tell you, our first year we get here, man, we had a couple of kids that made some picture perfect tackles.
Highlight tackles.
But we were so weak that they couldn't get up off the ground because it hurt them so bad. And so then they kind of became scared to tackle. And you know what?
Your schedule was just so brutal too. I mean, that first year you played the best teams in the state week after week after week, and they just weren't.
Yeah.
I mean, you played some teams in Texas that were just, and they just weren't ready for that. And it wasn't your fault. I mean, that was already on the schedule when you got there. I mean, it's one of the things that you just got to kind of deal with. And when you play Mayfield right away, good grief.
Jim Bradley at Mayfield, I'd been friends with Jim Bradley for a long time, and he's another one that had won multiple state championships up at Roswell High and then over at Las Cruces as Bulldog coach. And I'd give him the same kind of crap too. I'd say, hey, I can't believe you're coming over to Hobbs. We're going to kick your ass.
Yeah. But Coach Bradley did the same stuff. So it was,
Yeah. So, but that was fun.
What do you call you guys? The sniffer eye? Your offense was the sniffer eye because you're
he called it the sniffer.
It was freaking hilarious, man.
So Coach, how would you say that? Would you say that it's getting worse? Or would you say that it's just gonna it's kind of fallen into the power programs are gonna be the power programs with coaches moving around all the time, players moving around all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that you got your schools now that are they're winning, whether it's high school or it's college. Those people that are being successful, it's going to be hard to creep in there and be successful like that. And
there's not very many coaches that will get the time anymore to really rebuild a program from the ground up, and there's not very many coaches that want to do it, right?
I think it's a combination of both. I think, but I think the biggest one is they don't want to give you the time to build a program. I truly believe this, guys.
Yep.
When you come into a program like I came in here and I came into Skyline, it takes, and I always hear coaches say, well, it's going to take you 3 years. 3 years is not even close to the time that it takes to rebuild a program. It's a 7-year project to rebuild the
Wow.
complete culture and program. And you know what? I was at Skyline for 7, and I was here for 7, and we turned both of those programs. And I tell you what, I truly believe this. I think I could have stayed here and continued to coach here, and I think we would have been successful, more successful than I was during those 7 years that we were here. Because by then we had created the culture that was needed. We were strong. Our weight room was incredible.
You basically have a turnkey program, so you just need a guy to come in with a good offensive and defensive philosophy and take the talent that is there, that the foundation that is there, and really just listen. Now we're getting into running. We're going to run high tempo, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. And you can actually, you're not coaching fundamentals anymore, right, Coach? You're coaching to win. And there's a difference.
Yes, they've learned the fundamentals like we were talking about earlier. They learned those things as they were coming up through Pop Warner and they were playing middle school ball and freshman and JV football. That's where they got all their fundamentals. And now you're just working on the fine points once you get them to the varsity.
Yeah, you're taking a guy. Let's just say wide receivers, right? He knows everything he needs to do. Now you're teaching him the entire route tree, as opposed to trying to teach this kid how to block on a run play his freshman year, and that's the difference.
Yes, Cody, and that's a great point because you do now you have this receiver at the varsity level, and you're able to teach him the technique points, the minute technique points. I know Artesia, I know Jason played receiver. Hey, there's a lot of tricks to the trade to get separation that you need at the receiver position. The technique.
Good thing because I didn't have the speed.
Right. And so that's where you can start coaching that technique, and that's what separates you from the other programs.
Yeah, most definitely. And I'm glad I got you on, man. I saw you on here last Tuesday, and I was like, man, I don't even care if anybody watches it. I just want to talk to Coach, man. This is a thrill for me, because I think people just don't realize how much time and effort it takes to build a program, like a Center Grove here, and we've had the same coach at Center Grove for like 16 years. And we just heard it from the man himself. A highly decorated high school coach. You got to give him 7 years, and a lot of places it's 3 and out.
And we're not talking yesterday, right? I mean, what we were saying yesterday is you got to have at least 4 or 5 years to even really start judging them.
Yeah.
I'm telling you guys,
it's the microwave society. That's not what you're going to get.
Exactly, Jason. And it's, what have you done for me lately? And guys, I sit here and watch. I still keep up with a lot of my Texas high school buddies, and which, by the way, I was looking through Dave Campbell's Texas high school football the other day and all the coaching moves and changes. And I go through there. I got about 7 of my ex-players that have moved into some head coaching jobs. And, that excites me a ton, which I'm going to probably start making my way over there and watching some of them coach their ball games. And so that's always fun. But I was going somewhere with that and forgot where I was going with that. See, hell, that's my problem. I couldn't coach anymore because I'd forget to friggin' play.
Yeah, and my thing is and it's even more apparent at the college level. But
Yeah.
you know what? These guys and some of these schools are firing good coaches.
Oh, that's
You're
where I
not
was
always
going. Thank you, Cody. Thank you.
you're not always gonna get the town.
Yeah.
Listen, especially here. So the town right across the way, I-70 here, Monrovia. They're literally 2 miles from my house. The interstate splits us. Okay, from
Okay.
from Cascade to Monrovia. They won 2 state championships in a row. About 5 years ago.
Okay.
It took them 20 years. 20 years ago, they won 2 state championships. Now, do you know what the thing is? All those kids, daddies had played on that state championship team.
Absolutely.
And people don't realize that. It takes time, guys.
Yeah.
And you only get a special team every couple years, coach?
Yeah.
Some and you know what? There's some places in Texas that it's maybe one every 15 years, right, coach?
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe.
Oh yeah. Even the power programs don't win it all the time.
No.
They just don't.
Cody, you made a great point, and it's you see a lot of guys that have won back-to-back state championships, and they have a bad year. Hell, they fire them. So it's like, did this guy get stupid all of a sudden? I mean,
Nope.
he can't coach football, but it's that mentality of, what have you done for me lately?
That's what we were talking about on the show the other night. You were right about that. You said Saban's got something to prove this year. That's crazy that you would even think about that, but it's true.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's not the coaching. I mean, and at the college level, it's a little bit different because you're expected to get the talent, but still, it takes a special team to win a national or a state title. It takes a very, very special team, and then you are rolling the dice. All it takes is
you gotta have a little luck to go with it, because you got to stay away from the injury
bug.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you got to have a little luck to go along with it.
Coach, how many years have you seen a team that you're like, oh, this thing is built right, and they lose an impact player, and season's done?
Yeah, they're done.
How many teams have you seen in your lifetime do that?
Oh gosh, I think, every year you see people that's what happens to them. You thinking, golly, I'll tell you, and just in my own experience, the year that we go to Odessa and beat Odessa High, and we lose our fullback, that's 310 pounds, that could run. He wasn't just big and fat. He was agile.
Yeah, man.
And had we not lost him, we probably have a chance to go on and really get deep into the playoffs and maybe even compete for a state championship. So yeah, you see that happen a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy too. And you know who's going to get the brunt end of that?
Oh, hey, coach, you're an idiot, man.
Yeah.
Hey, they get too much credit for winning and too much for losing.
That's it. All right, guys, we've been on for an hour and 8 minutes. I appreciate, Coach, you coming on. Jason, I appreciate you coming on. Yeah. Coach, I'd love to have you back on. I'll get with Jason, and maybe after these spring games go, we can break down some stuff. I think usually around Easter, the spring games are done and over with, so we'll get lined up to have you back on. Thanks again for coming on. This has been an hour of just enjoyment for me. I don't even care if anybody watches this. I'll go back and watch it.
Hey man, Hank enjoyed it, I think. And Hank, you'll see us. We'll see Hank again on Tuesday again for our live show as well. And if you want to come on, you're welcome to anytime. But I know you got to work, don't you?
Yeah, I work nights, unfortunately. So,
anytime you're ready, but anytime you want to get on, we'll do it again. And Hank, we'll see you on the next one too, man. We appreciate you guys jumping in, and thanks for having us on, man. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no problem, man. This was an absolute blast, Coach and Jason. All right, guys, we will see you later. You guys have a good rest of your weekend. I'm gonna get out here and do some yard work. High Top says horns up, right?
Yeah, screw High Top.
All right, guys, we will see you later.
Later.
Go Gators.